For the first time since COVID started, I can proudly say that 2022 was a good year for movies. No thanks to these crappy ones. Hi, I'm Yoshi Pilot, and this is the first video in a 3-part series where I rank all of the movies I saw in 2022. Today, we're going to be going through all of the movies that I consider bad. This means any movie I gave a D or an F letter grade. Besides Morbius. That one gets a Z. Babylon is a movie that just screams pretentiousness. I've seen a lot of people who actually really like this movie, and I can kind of see where they're coming from. The setting of early Hollywood is pretty interesting, and some of the characters are likable, but geez, this movie just did not do it for me. This movie feels like it can substitute actual substance for senseless shock value that I can't show here because my video will get deleted. And don't get me wrong, I don't care about a tit or two in a movie, but the first 30 minutes of this movie is essentially a porno, and that's not the only scene in this movie like that. It's like they're begging people to walk out of the theater. And beyond that, it's just way too long. I would have liked this movie a lot more, maybe even put it in my good movies list, if it wasn't 3 hours and 20 minutes long. And this movie came out only a week after Avatar came out, which was also 3 hours and 20 minutes long. It's no wonder why people didn't want to immediately go see another 3-hour movie right after watching a 3-hour movie. No wonder why this bombed. This movie has serious pacing issues due to its long length, and I think a 2-hour or even a 2-hour 30-minute runtime would have gone a long way to making this movie a lot better and a lot more watchable. At the end of it all, this movie is essentially an R-rated Singing in the Rain, minus the singing. And I feel like that's a very interesting concept for a movie, but this one just botched the execution hard. D+. Strange World is one of the most forgettable movies I have ever seen. Initially, I put this in my mediocre list, but after thinking back to it, I realized just how little of an impact this movie made on me. Like, all the characters are forgettable, the story is so forgettable, the twist at the end kind of just makes no sense and makes for a super anticlimactic ending. And this movie overall is just so bland and generic. It feels like Disney was hoping that the gay crowd would show up just because it has a prominent gay character in it, but then they pulled out on all of the marketing after all the controversy that Lightyear had. Overall, this movie is just bland and generic and not worth your time, with or without the gay character. D+. If I were to describe Thor: Love and Thunder with one word, it would be disappointing. This movie had so much potential, being the sequel to the excellent Thor Ragnarok, that essentially revived the Thor franchise, only for this movie to go ahead and pretty much kill it again. It is baffling to me that this movie has the same director as Thor Ragnarok, because it really feels like they showed someone else Thor Ragnarok and told them to create a movie that imitates that style. Because it seems like someone who is in charge saw that Thor Ragnarok had jokes in it, so this movie should have a joke in pretty much every single scene. I was actually debating whether or not to put this in my mediocre list or my bad list, because I do think there are some good aspects to this movie. Some of the visuals are really great, and Jane's character is definitely better than the first two movies. But the sheer amount of disappointment in this movie, and the fact that this movie kind of signals the beginning of the end for the MCU, I'm gonna have to give this one a D+. Amsterdam is a movie where Taylor Swift gets hit by a car. That is the only good part about Amsterdam. This movie has an excellent cast with faces such as Christian Bale and Robert De Niro. However, they are so misused in this movie. This movie's story barely leaves an impact, and it's full of ridiculous things that make no sense, like how this movie takes place in the 1930s, but the climax relies on the main characters recording people in secret with a handheld camera that is able to record both video and sound. That is absolutely ridiculous and makes no sense. But if you don't mind your suspension of disbelief being shattered and want to see Taylor Swift being hit by a car, then this is the movie for you. D+. Pray for the Devil is a PG-13 horror movie. That should be enough to make you not want to see it, however there's more. It has an invisible threat, which is done pretty well. However, unfortunately for this movie, Smile did that same concept way better just a month earlier, and it ends up making this movie seem redundant. And it doesn't help that the CGI in this movie is not the best. And the weirdest part about this movie is the setting, where it's this crazy nun school where they exorcise demons out of people. The whole premise just never really makes sense. This movie might have had some potential if Smile didn't exist, but unfortunately for Pray for the Devil, Smile does exist, and this is just a movie that you should skip. D+. With The Invitation, we have back-to-back PG-13 horror movies. This movie is a vampire movie that relies entirely on jump scares for its horror, and just such lame horror. Once again, weird premise with vampires that aren't actually that threatening. This movie may have had potential if it was able to go all out with the gore, but the PG-13 rating, man, it just kills this movie. I heard that it does have an unrated cut out on video on demand. However, the PG-13 version is the version that released in theaters, and I'm not gonna watch your alternate cut if the one I saw in theaters already sucked. I'm sorry, The Invitation. You're just gonna have to accept this D+ and move on with your day. Bros is a comedy movie where I did not laugh a single time. I have to assume that this is because the people who made this movie made a gay movie about gay people with gay jokes that only gay people would understand, and then got mad when straight people didn't show up to the box office. And I feel like most of the jokes are so wrapped up in gay male millennial culture that I don't even think, say, a bisexual Zoomer would get the jokes in this movie. Or maybe I'm just stupid and couldn't get the jokes. And yeah, it doesn't help that this movie has 5 gay sex scenes in it, but they're all wearing boxers. Which makes it even funnier that Billy Eichner was trying to say that anyone who isn't homophobic should see this movie.
Sir, are you homophobic or will you be seeing Bros?
Neither.
Why?
I say don't see this movie unless you are very, very gay. D. The Woman King is a movie that is boring. It is very, very boring. And it doesn't help that throughout that boring movie, nothing of what you are seeing is even somewhat true. Despite the fact that this movie marketed itself as being based on true events, nothing besides the basic fact that there was an African tribe that had elite female warriors is even somewhat true. In fact, a lot of what this movie is showing is actually the opposite of true, as this movie tries to show the tribe as morally opposed to slavery and helping free members of a rival tribe, when in reality, the tribe this movie is about was one of the most notorious in the slave trade. And besides the inaccuracies, because I can get past inaccuracies even if you market your movie as based on true events, this movie is way too boring. There are so many scenes when just nothing happens, and the actual fight scenes are way too few and far between. I am honestly not sure what this movie was trying to go for. D. Secrets of Dumbledore is an insult to the Harry Potter franchise. This movie is way more boring than a Harry Potter movie should be, and it is able to recreate exactly none of the magical feeling that the main 8 Harry Potter movies did. It's honestly baffling that this is what Warner Brothers wants to do with the Harry Potter franchise, and that they actually made a third Fantastic Beasts movie after the second one. Overall, this movie is boring, convoluted, and forgettable, and not worth your time. D-. Halloween Ends is just plain weird. This is a movie that spends so much of its runtime on this weird Corey kid that it really feels like they're trying to build up this Corey guy as the next Michael Myers. And then, spoiler alert, they just kill him at the end along with Michael Myers. And yeah, it kind of does make sense that they would kill him if this is the last Halloween movie. But why would you want the last Halloween movie focused on setting up this new character? It doesn't really make any sense. This movie's only purpose is for the 20 minutes of fan service they shove in at the end, where you get to see Michael Myers killed. But other than that, this movie is just so weird with how it decided to take itself. It really feels like Halloween Kills could have been the last Halloween movie if they just duct taped the last 20 minutes of Halloween Ends onto that movie. And yeah, fan edits are already doing this. D-. Jurassic World Dominion. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but Jurassic World Dominion is an insult to the Jurassic Park franchise. Jurassic World Dominion asks a question in the beginning of the movie and all of its marketing: what would it be like if dinosaurs inhabited the entire world along with humans? Jurassic World Dominion is a movie that does not answer that question at all. This movie promised to be different from all the other movies, and that it wouldn't be confined to a single location, and that dinosaurs would be roaming all around the world. But we barely get to see any of that. We get to see this little dinosaur black market area, but then nothing after that. After that, the entire movie just takes place in this biosyn lab that serves the same narrative purpose as a freaking theme park. And it doesn't help that this movie is more about locusts than it's about dinosaurs. The only potentially redeeming part is the returning actors, but even they feel like they don't really want to be there. At the same time, I don't want them to make another Jurassic World movie, but I also don't want the Jurassic Park franchise to end on this movie forever. And it doesn't even help that Jurassic World Dominion is like 30 minutes longer than it should be. This movie should have been like 1 hour and 50 minutes maximum, but it ended up being 2 hours and 30 minutes. This movie just wastes your time. It's an insult to the franchise. It does everything wrong. F. The worst movie that I saw of 2022 is Firestarter. Firestarter sucks and fails in pretty much every way possible. In fact, it sucks so much that I made an entire video about how much it sucks. So if you want to learn more about how much it sucks, then you should watch that video. However, the long and short of it is that ridiculous CGI makes this serious movie feel like a comedy, and a comedy that you're laughing at instead of with. All the acting sucks, all the cinematography sucks with way too many weird zooms and close-ups. The editing is bad, and pretty much just everything is bad about this movie. Don't watch it unless you want to laugh at it, in which case then this movie actually does work pretty good at being that. F. There you go, that's my list of the worst movies from 2022. Are there any worse movies that I missed? Tell me below in the comments. And tell me why my opinions suck. Thank you, and have a great day.